Welcome back to the Band Guide, where we use GarageBand to create professional sounding music. I'm your band guy, Colin, and today we are kicking off a brand new series called the Ultimate GarageBand Beginner's Guide. This series is going to walk through everything you need to know from the very first time you open up GarageBand until you have finished, recorded, mixed, and mastered your song, and it's now ready to share with the world. We're going to go through GarageBand itself, we're going to go through what gear you might need, and then we're actually going to record, mix, and master a short little song together throughout this series. It's going to be awesome. We're going to cover everything to get you going so that you can create professional sounding music in GarageBand. The key is having kind of a system and a workflow that you understand and knowing what your tools are and how to use them. So in today's video, I actually just want to start out by explaining a little bit of GarageBand, giving you an overview of GarageBand, and showing you how GarageBand has everything that a Pro Studio has and how you can access that inside GarageBand so that as you get into this, you have confidence that you can create professional sounding music in GarageBand. Before we even jump into GarageBand together though, let's actually just listen to a short snippet of a song I just recently mixed in GarageBand.
Instead of crying at the table, instead of giving out the names, instead of lying that you're stable, instead of pushing it away, and you say it's just to get out, yeah, it's just to get out of the thick of it. And now you're saying you're proud, yeah, you're saying you're proud. We're all getting sick of it, yeah.
Not too bad, right? And that's all GarageBand. As you saw, there was GarageBand drums and GarageBand amps, and the bass amp was GarageBand, the processing, the EQs, those are all GarageBand. This is all being done inside GarageBand. The key here is our intentionality with it. It's amazing what you have access to inside GarageBand. So don't feel limited by GarageBand. As long as you're intentional and you approach it with a professional process, you can create professional sounding music in GarageBand, even if you're just starting out. And speaking of starting out, the first time you open up GarageBand, you're probably going to see something like this. Now, we'll talk about all these pieces in an upcoming video. So for today, right now, I'm just going to create a track because what I really want to talk about is showing you all the pieces in here, a brief overview, and connecting it to what you would see in a Pro Studio. So you can understand that you have everything here that you need to create professional sounding music, to get yourself going, to get that song idea out. It's amazing what all is in GarageBand. And so let's start by talking about really quickly the two processes of putting out music production. The first is the recording piece. That is recording it, getting the right tones, getting the right performance. The second is processing it. That's shaping the sound so it sounds big and clean and clear and professional. If you've ever recorded anything, you may have noticed that it isn't as simple as you record drums and you record bass and you record guitars and vocals and then it just sounds great and you're done. Unfortunately, there is that whole other piece of processing, and that's really mixing. That's the bulk of mixing. There is mastering in that as well, but we're going to focus on mixing for today. And you have everything you need for both sides of that in GarageBand. You have pieces for the recording and you have pieces for the mixing and processing. So let's talk about recording first. So when you first walk into a big studio, most studios are going to have multiple drum kits because you want to get that right drum sound. And recording and mixing drums is an art in and of itself, but built into GarageBand right off the bat, you have a bunch of different drum sounds. So right now, this is the retro rock drum kit. Not a bad sounding drum kit, but let's say it doesn't work for your music. Maybe you want to try the Manchester drum kit. Totally just change that sound. So you have these pieces to help you get it right at the source. It's like having a billion drum kits in your room, but it doesn't stop at drum kits. You also have, if we create a software instrument here, you have organs, right? So it's going to default here to an electric piano. That's a great sound. It could also be a organ here. We go this classic rock organ. You actually have like the sliders. You can really perfect and tweak the sound. Imagine walking in and having access to, a Steinway grand piano. You have all these different pieces that you can just quickly pull up and play around with different sounds and tones and try to get something that's that vision in your head out onto paper. And that's what all those different elements in a Pro Studio are about, except that you don't have to learn all the miking techniques and all these like really complex things for these elements. Now, if you want to add acoustic guitar on it, you're going to need to learn how to mic it. We're going to cover that kind of stuff in this course, in this series, if you will. It's basically a course. And So don't worry about that. We're going to talk about recording things in the real world as well. But just right off the bat, think about how many different sounds you have here. So you can, in addition to having all these sounds, layer them on top of each other. And that's a really big piece of the recording process. So you get your drum sound, then you can layer on your bass, and you can really focus on just getting a great bass performance, getting your in time and in tune so that it is really locked in with the drums, then layer on guitars, then layer on vocals. And you can focus on one thing at a time and then mix them all together to sound like one cohesive song. So now that I'm bringing a mixing, so layering pieces, recording it, getting all the right sounds, that's all recording. Then we have the processing, the mixing of it. And if you imagine with me a big mixing console where you have all the little knobs and all the faders, well, you have those pieces inside GarageBand as well. So for example here, that fader, right, the slider at the bottom of a mixing console, that's this volume fader here. So you can bring the volume up and down right here. You also have the pan knob. So this is to pan it off into your left ear, into your right ear. You have that right here built into GarageBand. But beyond that, all those billion other little knobs that you'd have on a mixing console, we have access to that through something called plugins. So if you go to your smart control window here, down here you'll see plugins. And if we pop this open, here we have something like EQ. So that is one of the key tools for the mixing process. It's what a lot of those little knobs are, is little EQ points. And we actually can shape those same kinds of points right here in GarageBand with a very intuitive, easy to use, great sounding EQ built into it. It's more or less exactly the same EQ that's built into Logic right here on GarageBand. So if you want to add brightness, so it's really, really bright and shiny sounding, you can do that. If you wanted to make it, have a lot of low end here in the bottom, we can add in a lot of low end. Just imagine the bass and the treble on your car stereo. You have access to all that right here. So EQ is a huge part of that mixing processing. The second is compression. Now, I will acknowledge that the compressor built into GarageBand leaves something to be desired, but fortunately, GarageBand actually lets you add in third-party plugins. So other companies can make plugins that you can add into GarageBand. And there's some great free ones out there like La La by Analog Obsession. Now, this might look intimidating, but this is an emulation of a very expensive piece of analog hardware. You can have it in GarageBand for free. And all you really need to learn to use is these two knobs right here to get compression dialed in on your sources. And that's the way the pros use it. They just dial in with two knobs. So you have access to tools like LA2A style compression, which is what this is. This is free from Analog Obsession in GarageBand. And then the last couple pieces that mixers have on a console is to route out to effects. So to send it off to add reverb or delay, things like that. And we can do that right here. So for example, you'll see right here, there's master echo and master reverb. So that's two effects that you can dial in just right here on the track itself. But you can also add in a plugin. So if we go down here, we have multiple reverb sounds like the platinum verb here, right? And these are different reverb sounds that sound really great. They're actually the same as what's in Logic. They just look a little bit different here. And so you can dial in reverb. You can also dial in delays. So a stereo delay is a really cool effect. And we have access to all that right here in GarageBand completely free. And it's the same as what you'd have in a Pro Studio, and literally in some cases it's the exact same as what they have in Logic. It just might look a little bit different, but it's the exact same reverbs and delays and EQs and even compression. So GarageBand has what you need. You can create professional sounding music in GarageBand, and that's what this series is going to be all about. Don't be intimidated by this video. Everything that we've talked about here, we're going to go more in depth on in future videos, so stick around with me. Every day this month, I'm bringing you a new short video going through little bite-sized pieces of the recording and mixing process so that you understand everything from the first time you open GarageBand to you're exporting your final mastered song. You have it all right here, and I want to help you with that. I want to give you even more. I've actually put together the Ultimate GarageBand Guide. It's completely free from the link in the description below, and it walks through everything that we're covering throughout the series so you can quickly reference back to it anytime you need, and it will actually go more in depth on little pieces here and there as well. So be sure to grab it for free from the link in the description below. It's really going to help you out to make sure that you're starting out on the right foot. Don't waste time just kind of pedaling around trying to figure it out. This will help you from the first time you open GarageBand until you are done with your song, everything you need to know to get going. So grab that guide for free from the link in the description below. Before we go, I want to hear from you. Do you have any questions about GarageBand? As I'm getting into the series, I'm going to try to answer as many as I possibly can. So let me know in the comments below. If this video is helpful, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.
One thing at a time.